Okay, well, so if you've been watching some of our other videos, we somewhat recently, went on a Hawaiian cruise. And this is the last day, day 7. As I'm sure you probably have gathered if you've seen some of the others, is that we go big when we go on vacation. We want to do just about everything that a new place has to offer. So that being said, we made it through about 6 days of a very rigorous schedule, and on day 7, we did not do a whole lot. We slept in, we got to kind of enjoy the ship and enjoy the weather. It had rained a little bit in the morning. We saw some nice rainbows. Kind of gathered ourselves and got ready for the highlight of day 7. But when we were kind of just enjoying ourselves on the ship, I was taking a shower. We had just taken a nice nap, and all of a sudden I got a text message that Michael was in a competition on the ship deck. So he was crowned the Mr. Aft of the ship, and we do have some lovely video footage from my cell phone that day. So here you go. Check it out.
Give it up for Michael!
And that's something I never thought I would do on a cruise ship or in general. But hey, you only live once, right? So after that, we set sail out of Kauai, and Norwegian likes to get really close to the Nepali coast, which is something really neat because we didn't need to book a separate excursion. We thought to see the Nepali coast. So we wanted to share some footage, and we're just going to let the Nepali coast speak for itself.
Joining us on our adventure as we recapped our 7-day cruise through Hawaii. Just a couple of points that we wanted to share as we wrap up and kind of reminisce back on our vacation and think about some of the better points and I guess some tips and tricks in case this is something that you decide to look into doing. First disclaimer for this is we are not cruisers.
We are not.
We're not cruise people. We've never, there's some families that grow up and that's their vacation, and that was neither of us growing up. We've never been on a cruise up until this point. Mm-hmm. So some of these tips that we share might seem a little bit basic, and if you've been on a cruise before, might seem like they should be a no-brainer, but for us, they make a little bit of sense. Yeah. And I guess other question or other kind of point is, why did we pick this cruise? There's a couple different reasons. One of our goals since we've gotten married just over 2 years ago was that we want to see all 50 states together. It's been kind of one of our driving forces in some of the weekend trips that we do, just to be able to see some of our country without even having to cross state lines or borders. And so that was the first reason that we looked specifically at this cruise as an option. The other thing that we liked with it being a first cruise for us was that we stopped every single day. No matter what the day was, during the day you could be off of the ship, which for us, not having been on a cruise before, not knowing how long we'd be able to make it at sea, if we would get seasick, anything like that, we wanted to be able to escape and get on land. That was the other reason that we specifically went with Norwegian Cruise Line. We looked at a couple different options of things that we could do to cruise through Hawaii, and Norwegian is the only cruise line that offers a cruise that starts and ends in Hawaii. It does involve obviously flying to get to Hawaii, but for us, flights are not a problem. We just didn't want to start our trip with 2 to 3 days at sea. Again, with us not having cruised before, not knowing how we were going to do with the ship.
So the second reason why we picked this cruise is because since this was our first time going to Hawaii, we wanted to see it all. We wanted to see all the islands, and getting from island to island at the time of when we went was kind of pricey. And Norwegian sees all of the Hawaiian Islands starting and ending in Honolulu.
So pricing wise, we kind of weighed our options of what we would, spend if we opted to kind of do the islands on our own. So that being by land and by air. So, we ideally wanted to stop at least 2, if not 3 islands. So you factor in a few inter-island flights. You also add in the different rentals that we would have needed to stay at, whether it be a hotel room, Airbnb, vacation rental, something like of that sort for us to stay. In addition to the fact that the cruise ship obviously included all of our meals. And, for us, it was kind of a price wash, and for us wanting to be able to see a little bit of everything, the cruise was the perfect option. It also it was really nice that we were able to unpack and not worry about our stuff and put everything away in a spot and not feel like every 2 days we were needing to move everything. We have done vacations like that, and it can be a little bit stressful sometimes. So at the end of the day, the pricing, it came down to, we spent a total of just over $4,300 for our room. We did opt for a little bit of a nicer room. We had a midship balcony room. Couple reasons for that. Number one, with it being our first cruise, we were not sure how either one of us was going to handle the potential of getting seasick or motion sick. We wanted to be able to have access to the outside world and not feel like we were trapped in a small room. And as we've heard from others, cruise ship rooms are notoriously small, so we weren't really knowing what to expect. And so we opted for a slightly larger than average size room. Second thing is we wanted to be able to open a window or a door so that if we needed to get some outside fresh air in, that in the middle of the night, if you're not feeling great, that was an option. So we did opt for the balcony upgrade. I think it was well worth it. I don't really know that I would be able to be on a cruise ship if I didn't have at least a window opening to the outside world.
And if you want to see what our room looked like, here's a link above of our room tour.
So the pricing of the $4,300, like I said, we looked for a span of about a 3-month period. We were checking in early beginning of the year. So between January to March, we knew we wanted to go at some point in there. We looked at all of the pricing and we just kind of picked what was the cheapest week available. For us, that ended up being the last week in January. Weather was by all our accounts was beautiful. It was just it was upper 70s and sunny, but we are from the Midwest, so we were hearing from locals left and right that it had been a lot nicer a few weeks prior, and that typically their weather is more in the low 80s. Again, for us, not a problem. And again, we just picked the cheapest week during that kind of time span that we were looking to travel.
And now let's get into 5 things that we learned from our first cruise experience. Starting with my personal favorite. Even if you don't normally get motion sickness, you may still get sick on this cruise. I have been on plenty of roller coasters, plenty of car rides, plenty of everything, and I do not get a queasy stomach. But on that first night, I got extreme vertigo. It wasn't motion sickness, it was vertigo. And the only way I wasn't feeling... I had to lay down in the bed, and it was miserable. Luckily, we thought ahead of this because we didn't know if we might get motion sickness. We did pack some Dramamine. And we found out that I just would take 2 of those each day before we left, and I was totally fine.
Something else to note is even if you have been on cruise ships and you're like, nope, not a problem for me, the Hawaiian Cruise in particular, I guess, is a little bit rough, especially the week that we ended up going. Mostly because it is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Unlike a lot of other cruises that kind of sail through the Caribbean with the pale blue waters, this cruise is, like I said, in the middle of the ocean, and so it is a little bit rougher than most other rides. Okay, second big recommendation is knowing what's in your packages. So there's, several different add-on packages for just about anything. You could... one of our, options when we were booking was $50 off of an excursion at each port that you stop in. There's other options to add on additional dining, photo packages. We kind of opted out of all of those. We kind of usually plan our own trips. With us, again, not having been on a cruise before, we didn't really, feel that it was necessary for us to pay for the upgraded dining. We thought and found out that there was plenty of food options available on the ship without that upgrade. Now, if you're really picky about your food, you might think otherwise. The one option that we did go ahead and get for us as an upgrade was the all-inclusive drink package. So many other cruises, again, through the Caribbean or wherever, may throw in a drink package as part of your booking specials. With this being Hawaii, it still is United States soil, so that kind of makes drinks a lot more expensive than they would be. Cruise ships, from what I hear, can be kind of expensive, but this one was in particular as well. The nice part about their beverage package is that it is truly all-inclusive. There are some top shelf alcohol and liquors that are not included, but other than that, there's no limit on the amount of drinks that you can get per day, whether that be alcoholic or otherwise. So that's kind of nice because I have heard of cruise packages where they cap it off at a certain number. But we really feel like we underutilized this. We kind of were deer in the headlights on the first day, went and bought our first round of drinks, saw how expensive it was going to be, and kind of did a little bit of math and determined, you know what, it might be worth it for us to do it. If nothing else, just to make, just for us to be peace of mind that, you know what, it's all included, get what you want. But that being said, there were a lot of other small things that we didn't really consider and utilize during the whole time. Things like getting a bottle of table water at dinner. Not completely necessary, but if it's included, I mean, why not? I'm a big sparkling water drinker.
I am not. So we got one of each.
So by the day, by the last day at dinner, we knew that was an option, that we could each get our own water that we wanted to have, while still being able to drink wine or beer or whatever else we selected. One of the options that we did find out on day 2 or 3 that we used almost every morning was fresh squeezed juice. There was, something really, really nice about being able to go down to the buffet in the morning before most other people are up getting ready for our excursions and picking whatever fruits and veggies that you wanted. They would make it right in front of you, put it in the juicer, and then there you go. You had a fresh squeezed juice. The last thing that we could have used a little bit more of that we didn't know about until day 3 or 4 was that near where our room was, there was actually like an evening cocktail bar. I guess it's kind of, at that time, about 1.5 years ago, it was a trial basis. Norwegian uses these a lot, I guess, in their more exclusive lounges and things like that for the really, really nice rooms. But this was one of their first trials with doing it with the general population. So it was super nice. It was open, from, I want to say 6 to 7:30 or so. You could get a nice pre-dinner cocktail. And the bartender who worked there was phenomenal. You could just let him know what flavors you liked, and then he would make you something, which is something that we really enjoy. We're not set to one drink or one spirit. I like being a little bit creative and a little bit fun with what we're, if we're going to have a drink, I like to experience something new. So for us, that was super fun.
Our third tip, don't be afraid to book excursions on your own. This is how we did every one of our excursions, and we thankfully had no issues. The only caveat to that is if the ship does not dock in the port, since you didn't book through the cruise ship, you are on your own for that. But that's a risk that we were willing to take, because every time we looked at an excursion, it was at least $50 to $100 cheaper looking through the company directly than through the cruise ship. And kind of tying into that tip is my next tip, which is if you book an excursion on your own, make sure you understand the transportation to and from that. A couple examples of that. One is we rented a car in Maui, and our rental car company was the only one that didn't come to the ship terminal. Not a big deal. It's just something that we didn't think about and that we didn't look at. So a quick little bit of research and you would have figured that out. The second point to that is in Kona, the ship does tender into port. So there are little tender boats. And if you book an excursion directly through the ship, you get on the first tenders of the day. So just make sure you know what time your excursion starts so that you allow ample time. I think our excursion that day, it was snorkeling. I think we had to be there about 9 o'clock, 9:30, and we got on one of the first public tenders, and we still had over an hour of kind of free time to peruse the shops, call it.
Okay, and our last tip, I would say, is just do a bit of planning. This kind of goes into several different things. It can, obviously we did do a lot of research and planning when it came to booking our excursions. We kind of laid out all of the things that we wanted to be able to do while we were there. My big one being whale watching. Michael's big one being biking at some point. We also really wanted to do something in the water, swimming. And so we were able to touch base with each of those points by kind of plotting out what you're able to do on each island and where it makes most sense to do each of those things. We also really looked into the sides of the ship. So, whether that be, each side of the ship, I guess, has its own benefits. For us, the side that we docked on in Maui was gorgeous. You woke up and you had a beautiful mountain view. They I think, do a pretty good job of alternating which side of the ship gets the better view in port so that you get a little bit of both worlds. I think it was in Hilo that we were not looking at the prettiest site. We were looking at kind of the ship deck area. But that being said as well, as we talked about, one of the highlights of the cruise for us was seeing the Nepali coast. Now, we were there in January. It was one of the shortest days of the year. So, and Norwegian kind of adjusts their sail time for that last day so that you're seeing the Nepali coast during the daytime, which is nice. And depending on the weather, they do a sweeping view on both sides of the ship of the Nepali coast. So that being said, you will see the Nepali coast from your room if you want from either side of the ship. However, one side does get a little bit closer than that. So just kind of looking into that, and we kind of looked through the sail patterns and picked which side of the ship that we wanted based on a couple of those different things. Lastly, what I really enjoyed about Norwegian as a cruise line, and again, we don't have a whole lot to compare this to, but I really enjoyed the freestyle dining aspect. You can book reservations if you'd like for every single meal of the trip. But for us, it was nice not being told when you had to be at dinner. It was nice not having to dress up unless we wanted to, so we were able to wear comfortable clothes. And the fact that they have two dining areas, two main dining rooms that both feature the main menu of the day, and you're given the option of a less formal dining area where you can still be dressed casually. So for us, we are not, big into the dressing up for dinner every night. Once in a while is great, but it was nice to be able to have really, really good food without worrying about that. The other thing was they did have there was one specialty restaurant that was Asian cuisine that was included with just the basic meal package. And for us, it was important to get to eat there at least once. So that was the one time that we did make an ahead of time dinner reservation. I want to say a week or two before we went on the cruise. The reason that we made that reservation was, number one, so that we could get in to eat there. I don't know that it would have been a problem to get in to eat there, but we wanted to be able to get in to eat there on a day that we were already kind of bound to the ship, if you will, that we had already taken off sailing, not one of the days that we were staying overnight in the same port. So if by chance we ended up doing something fun on land, we weren't missing our dinner reservation that night.
Well, that about wraps up what we have. Like we said, we went back in January of 2019, and we were filming this in 2020 in the middle of COVID. So right now, probably not the best time to go cruising, but I promise you one day soon it will open up. And when you do, we really hope that you, one, go to Hawaii and enjoy it. We absolutely loved it, loved the islands, loved every one of them. And if you do, and if you sound like you're the type of person that travels just like we do, we hope you book a cruise, because it is the best way to see the islands that we. Thanks for watching, and if you like this, please subscribe to us. We'd really appreciate it.